Welcome to the Out on a Limb podcast. We are all interconnected to a greater web of consciousness. Our aim is to open your mind to a new world through having open-minded discussions about what we perceive our reality to be.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts Will and Allison and Samantha. And I noticed I've been getting back in the habit of introducing our podcast, even though our intro introduces our podcast.
I know. But
you know, I
old habits are hard to break.
Hobbits are hard to break.
Exactly. Old hobbits are hard to break as well. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Never read that book. Anyhow.
Oh, wait. Hobbit. That's a great segue into what we're going to be talking about.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Do hobbits exist?
Yes.
Because we're going to talk about cryptids today. And we actually alluded to this topic a while back when we debriefed you guys on our UFO Fest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people there were interested in cryptids, and that was the first time I learned what a cryptid is. So cryptids are those mythological creatures. It's kind of a big umbrella term, though, for different types of creatures that we're going to get into kind of today a little bit.
But I think that if you're in the industry, in the field of study, from what I gathered, because I know a lot about I've read here and there, about a lot of the different creatures, but understanding, like, I was like, well, okay, what exactly is a cryptid, and what's the difference between that and mythological creature and stuff like that. And I have a feeling that there are people who study this stuff who'd be very offended if you said, oh, it's a huge umbrella. It's like, no, this is this and that is that, So if we say anything that it would purely through our ignorance, if we stumble across something that you go, oh no, it's supposed to be, this and not that. It looks like an umbrella, like to me.
Well, we're not saying umbrella in a derogatory fashion
No,
at all,
it's
and we'll
just-
explain that as we go further.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that cryptid lovers are probably not easily offended.
Okay.
Do you think?
Well, I think if you study it, then, you sit there and go, no, this is
you're an
my
expert,
field. Yeah.
like an
and that's
expert
your
in anything.
field. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
As you notice, I haven't been weighing in on this because I'm just going to be along for the ride, and I'll interject where I need to.
Oh, you
Okay.
just wait.
Sounds good. But so the study of cryptids falls under the title cryptozoology, right? And you looked into that.
Yeah, I had to look this up, and I have to read off of it because it's not my background. Okay, but it was interesting because I flew through a bunch of videos and was like, wow, this is
You watched videos on it?
Well, flew through them. But what's interesting is if you look up things about cryptids, everyone wants to go into, well, these are the top 20, or these are the ones in the southeast, these are the ones in the northeast.
Right.
I was like, where's the origin of this?
Yeah.
So the origin of cryptozoology, so in 1955, I think I wrote that down right, Bernard Hubelmans, something like Hubelmans. Anyway, he was a zoologist, and he wrote a book on the track of unknown animals. And that was the first time someone had actually so here he is like this well-known person actually. Yeah. And he's like going, okay, in print, here is a collection of things that have been heard about, spoken about, but we haven't actually laid hands on or whatever.
Right.
Oh.
And then there was another guy, Ivan T. Sanderson, and he wrote The Abominable Snowman.
Right.
And it was funny as I was writing that down, I'm sitting there going, because I always thought abominable sounds so funny, like, oh, he's abominable, he's just horrid.
Right.
And then I realized that's an abomination. It's like there's a little bit more going on there. And I hadn't really thought about the word before. But anyway, so when that book was written, and it was taken seriously, it wasn't just like an account or whatever, that laid the foundations of cryptozoology. So you've got this guy who did zoology and then starts going, okay, let's look at these. But for me, so my introduction is kind of in a different way, how I look at this, because to me, cryptids are trying to explain the unexplainable. People see things and legends are gathered and all this kind of stuff. And so I read these, I don't know if you've ever heard of Lincoln Childs and it's Lincoln Childs and what's the other guy? Douglas Preston, Lincoln Childs. So they're authors that write books together, and they do the Agent Pendergast series, which is fabulous. You guys have got to read. Like, this guy's like kind of a lone wolf in the FBI and does his own thing, and they always send him out to do the weird cases. And so often it's like he is investigating cryptid cases.
I think X-Files did that too, didn't they?
I think they did a bit of
an
that.
episode or two about,
Yeah.
But there's usually there is an explanation. Like there is a, it's started off as human, but then by the introduction of, this or birth defects or this or that,
right.
that there's other things that come off of it. Or through experimentation, underground experimentation and things like that, or what's the other one? Radio.
Oh, right. Radioactive.
So all of these things, like we all know, okay, there's, 5-winged bats, and
good point.
Somewhere
So
in Russia or
deformities,
something. Yeah.
basically.
So I think it's that because you don't sit there and go, oh, I saw a family of cryptids.
It's usually a one isolated.
One off. And so again, I think it's just a way to try to explain something that it does have a basis in something, but that it's a deformity. It's something that
it morphed over time.
Yeah. And so people are trying to explain what they saw, but it's just like you see an accident and you go, well, that's a red car, and somebody else says it's a yellow car, and there's shadows. And anyway, okay, so that's my overall take on this.
But that brought up a couple of good points in that sometimes these things are sensationalized regional experiences, and it hits the news, and the news, tends to amplify it because it's bringing tourists now and things like that.
Yeah.
But other ones are similar in that, for example, the Bigfoot. Like you might see one in North America, and then you also might see one on the other side of the globe. And so, in other words, it's a myth or a story or a cultural experience that happens to many different cultures at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting, because how are all these people seeing or experiencing the same type of being or same type of thing at the same time, right? Now, the cryptids, when I looked into all of this so that we could present you with an educated explanation of all of this, there are categories, educated guess. 4 different types of them. We have those that are aquatic, like Loch Ness. Those that are flying, like Mothman.
Yeah.
Those that are terrestrial, like
Bigfoot.
Chupacabra.
Or Bigfoot.
No, they fall into hominids.
Oh.
Then you have hominids, the ones that are kind of humanoid. Hominids.
It's so funny. This one video I saw, the guy, he's like, you got to categorize them somehow. So I'm doing the ones that are sad. Like they're just sad. Like you just feel so bad for them because they're just like, they're kind of cute and awkward, and you just feel sad for them. And there was another one, the real scary ones. Like you just would not want to see this one in a dark alley. And then he's like, and ones that kind of turn me on.
Right.
I'm just going, you got to group it somehow. Like
which those would be.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
So our overarching, or at least my overarching question in all of this is, are they truly mythological, or are they extra dimensional? And we're going to kind of talk about, I think, 7 of these or so, and talk about what we mean by that. And then you have those that are probably very explainable, but they were a sensation and they gained a lot of notoriety, and so it's fun to just continue it.
Well, and the other one that those that we said were cryptids, we didn't believe they existed or whatever. I mean, there was myth about them, but then we discover that
really are.
They finally are real things. Like we've been able to see them, put our hands on them. So these were actually, apparently society thought these were cryptids: giant pandas, the megamouth sharks, and Komodo dragons.
Oh, so
they
at one
thought-
point they started out as being cryptids.
People said, oh, I saw this scary, huge
Mythological,
giant
or
lizard that
whatever,
attacked me. And, and so I'm sure that they went on and on about the description of this thing. And then after a while, like it, because until you can actually capture it and see it and dissect it and
put my hands on it.
Then nobody's going to believe you.
That's a really good point, and why we need to remain open-minded about the rest of these, because who knows, we might actually catch a chupacabra. And that one's funny to me because when we lived
in South Texas,
in South Texas, and that's where that's kind of the region of this story. But lots of people were talking about, we were way down South Texas near Brownsville, and lots of people were talking about this Chupacabra. So the
Like wolf?
it's kind of a dog-like thing. I'll
Yeah.
tell you. Let me tell you what I found out here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. Do I need these?
And it's
Maybe I don't.
usually around, around goat herds and, that small cattle, small animals like goats and, but not
So-
like big cattle.
And it's usually the way that they've been slayed is not how
Yes.
a normal
Yes.
predator.
Yes.
Correct.
That's
Right.
correct.
So as we go through these, I'm going to number them for our tech guy
Oh,
because he's going to post some pictures up here for you.
I'll float some pictures across the screen apparently.
Yeah.
So.
So the Chupacabra, that Spanish translation of that word is goat sucker.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. Be mature, Sam.
It's a, well, what's interesting is chupa is, I guess, the sucker part, and cabras, because
It's the goat.
It's suck.
cabrita
Yeah.
is the goat that you would eat.
Right.
Like,
the baby goat.
Because I know a really nasty phrase in Spanish. I'm not going to say it.
wrong episode.
It's for a different time.
Cabrita, that's interesting. If you go down to Mexico, you'll see that they actually have a whole goat carcass on a skewer.
Yeah.
Spinning around, yeah.
And that's called?
Cabrita.
Cabrita.
Cabrita, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, it's a legendary creature in the folklore of parts of the Americas. The Chupacabra is said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, including goats. I think it started in Puerto Rico in 1995, actually. Those were the first descriptions that came through, initial sightings. But in Puerto Rico and Hispanic America, it's generally described as a heavy creature, reptilian and alien-like, roughly the size of a small bear, and with a row of spines reaching from the neck to the base of the tail. In the southwestern United States, which is where we kind of were, it's depicted as more dog-like.
Right.
Yeah.
So would that be like a vampire, or is a vampire only something that's of the same, like they were
No, they
once
call
human? And
they use
No.
that word in the description, vampiric.
vampiric.
Or,
Okay.
Yeah.
All
You know
right.
that word because you read those books, right? Those what are they called?
Yeah.
Romantic fantasies?
Yeah. No, not romance.
Not bromance.
Anyway, yeah.
Fantasy. What was the word?
I don't know.
We talked about this.
It wasn't romantasy, but that's fanatic. No, I can't remember. Romantasy.
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 Yeah.
Wow.
So they have some vampiric beings in that.
Yes, they do.
Oh, my
And
God.
other things as well.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on.
All right. So that one would have been terrestrial.
Yes.
Now, the aquatic Loch Ness Monster. This is one that I've kind of known about since childhood.
I think we all have.
I feel like these
Messy.
things are real and we just can't quite explain it. And I think that they connect through waterways that are deep down under earth and appear in different places. There's just
Portals.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Well,
it could
we
be
just been talking about portals and water, so
Right,
why not?
exactly.
Because there's too many sightings that are so similar, and then how can something like that just disappear for so long?
Well,
you know?
many believe that the whole sighting of an aquatic being like Loch Ness goes back to, the mariner days, the ancient mariner days of being out at sea for extended periods of time and kind of get a little loopy and seeing things. That's where mermaids and Loch Ness and
Well, but not Loch Ness is only in lakes.
Right, it's mainly lakes, but what I'm saying is any aquatic creature or something that you see on the horizon, right, can take on the shape of what your imagination is going to perceive it to be, right? So
Yeah.
it
like
goes back to
faces and
where do you stand on it? Now, is there truth behind it? Obviously there's been a lot of research for Loch Ness and nothing has truly been found. And then the one bit of evidence that has been put out there, the video of Loch Ness, that's been debunked. But
It has?
there was
I think all of it's been debunked, but again,
right. But does that mean it doesn't exist? No,
right?
some of these locks in that area of Scotland, I mean, they're 5,000-6,000 feet deep, 500-600 foot to over 1,000 feet deep. So,
And we're learning
we
life exists in a lot of
we
different
don't
places.
know what's in parts of our ocean. So how to say that we know what's in the bottom of some of these locks? I don't know. I mean, so
So for those who aren't aware,
Yeah.
the Loch Ness Monster, also called Nessie, is a Scottish.
Why do we have to call him a monster?
I don't
That's
know.
just what
That's
they
kind of derogatory. Let's scratch that. Loch Ness. He's not a monster.
Nessie.
I think
He's just minding his
I
business.
think he's a dinosaur.
Nessie.
Yes,
I
an
really-
aquatic dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's my belief. That's been my belief even as a kid that there's still probably dinosaurs
Right.
swimming
Well,
in the
there's
waters.
crocodiles. That's like
Yeah.
alligators. Those
We have cockroaches,
I guess
palmetto bugs.
I guess the question for me would be, does
monsters.
it breathe air or does it have gills of some sort? Because if it has to breathe air, you're going to see it more often and you're probably going to have pictures. Right?
yeah. Well,
You mean like a whale or a dolphin?
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at an alligator. An alligator needs to breathe air. It doesn't have
But
gills.
there's a lot of alligator sightings. So if,
Well, yeah,
if
but
Loch
I
Ness
mean,
needed
if you have a area that you have one, like a pond, like what we live on, and there's one alligator, the chances of seeing it, because during certain times of the year, you're not going to see it at all, because it
well, luckily we do not.
yeah, well,
well, but so I can't remember if I saw a picture that they thought this was the rendition of it, or because whatever, this is stuck in my mind. But it's that dinosaur that is aquatic that has the fins,
Yep,
and kind of. But that's.
So I wonder though.
makes
I wonder if it would
complete
have
sense to me.
breathed air or not. But anyway,
Well, I think it does both. I think it has gills, but I think it can.
Both.
Yeah.
could be. Who knows, right? When we see him, we'll ask him.
Let's do it. Let's channel them.
We could. Anyway, Scottish folklore says that this Loch Ness being inhabits the Loch Ness, and it's a loch. Is that their
Lake.
word for lake? Okay,
Lake.
I just wanted to be sure because we use the word loch. Doesn't mean that,
no,
right?
Well, it's also spelled with a K.
right.
Okay, gotcha. I don't. Okay, I didn't study that language. Okay.
L-O-C-K. Yeah.
In the Scottish Highlands.
Yep.
It's often described. We're going off the rails really quickly.
It's the
Really
minutia.
quickly.
We need to just be general in all
This
of
is
this.
our third of 3 today, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
All right. It's
and our
often
minds have been blown.
described as a large, long-necked being with one or more humps protruding from the water. It was brought to worldwide attention in 1933, and the earliest report, though, was in the 7th century AD. So this thing
Yeah.
is not going away,
It's a water camel.
perhaps.
It's a water camel.
Water camel.
That's what it is.
All right.
But it has air in its hump instead of. I got a whole thing going here.
Wow.
All right. Let's talk about.
She's like, do I want to bring these other ones up in front of us? 'Cause
Sure.
We're just going to.
All right. So we kind of alluded to Yeti already.
And not the mug or cup or
Well,
cooler.
Yeti is also called the abominable snowman.
Right.
I'm going to put these on because it's just much easier. Sorry.
Please do.
Thank you.
I always
right.
think of, you can't help saying that and not thinking of Rudolph the
Ah,
Red-Nosed
yes.
Right. That's
yes,
the
yes.
first, that's the first place I go.
And he's happy now because he
Right.
was just a dental problem. That's why he was
Yes.
abominable. It was a dental problem,
So
right?
he's the non-abominable.
And when the little elf guy, what was his
Herbie.
name? Herbie.
Come on.
Pulls out that
He's a
painful
dentist.
tooth.
Right. Herbie wanted to be a dentist.
Right.
Not
Okay.
not a toy maker.
Oh, I love that show. That's a good show.
My son would always say his line, I'm independent.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Independent. How cute.
See?
All right. So
Everyone.
this one is not terrestrial, but hominid.
Hominid, yes.
Hominid.
Yes.
Wait, what does that mean if it's
Like humanoid.
Human-like.
Oh, okay.
So the Yeti is an ape-like creature purported to inhabit the Himalayan mountain range in Asia.
Right.
In Western popular culture, see, this is what I was talking about. It can be the same being
Right.
in multiple places. Anyway, in Western popular culture, this creature is commonly referred to as the abominable snowman.
Right.
The Yeti is often described as being a large, bipedal, ape-like creature that's covered with brown, gray, or white hair, and it is sometimes depicted as having large, sharp teeth.
That's just to scare you not to go in the woods.
That's just
Correct.
to shred its prey.
Oh, is that what it is?
So is that the same thing? Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Now, as opposed to, we might as well go ahead and talk about Bigfoot.
Yep.
Right.
Bigfoot, also called Sasquatch,
Depending on where you are.
right, is
Sasquatch is Canada.
is that where it came
That
from?
I think it's
Sasquatch.
northwest. I think
Okay.
it's northwest.
All right.
I don't know what that means. It probably means something, Sasquatch. It's a large and hairy human-like creature alleged by some to inhabit forests in North America, particularly in the Pacific Northwest. Bigfoot is featured in both American and Canadian folklore, so there you
Yep.
go. There's your Canadian reference. But it's often described as a large, muscular, bipedal human or ape-like creature covered in black, dark brown, or dark reddish hair, same as Yeti.
Yes.
A height of roughly 6 to 9 feet,
Yep.
with some saying as tall as 10 to 15 feet.
Yep.
Some alleged observations describe Bigfoot as more human than ape, particularly in regard to the face.
Yes.
So that's kind of interesting.
No,
Why?
the reason I know is because I know because I've watched
Do
and
tell.
I've plenty of Les Stroud. If anybody is a Les Stroud fan or knows of him, he had a series for the longest time of basically
the wilderness, right?
surviving on his own out in the wilderness. He would be dropped off and have to survive. But he also did a whole expose on hunting Bigfoot.
Wow.
And
Did he give credence to it at the end? What was his?
so no, he didn't. If I remember right, he didn't deny or admit there is. He just wanted to provide evidence that he understands from guide services and different people who have had experiences. Now, he had his own experiences while out there, not ever coming face to face with it, but having, very peculiar, situations taking place at night. Now, one of the things that all reports are with Bigfoot is that, you smell them before you see them.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
they-
That they smell, well, if they want you,
Yeah.
if they don't like you or they're,
Right.
once you're out of there, they'll put this terrible odor, right?
Yeah, it's a horrible, it's very, very pungent. But you can also tell that you're in an area that might be inhabited by them because of, anybody that spent time out of the woods knows that there are natural, trees fall naturally, deadfall, they call it. And sometimes they'll lodge themselves into another tree but it has a particular way it looks when it falls and it lands into say a crook of another tree. So you've got a tree that's you got an upright tree and you got a tree that's leaning against it. What they find is there's no explanation to this. There's no, it's not like there's a chainsaw that has cut these trees down, but these 20, 30 foot straight pine trees or birch trees, they're arranged in a way that look like a lean-to or like a kind of like a semi-teepee or pointing in a certain direction, but they're clustered and leaning all across one branch, but they're coming from different. So naturally they wouldn't all fall into this one crook of a tree.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things, that, again, I am not going to confirm or deny that there isn't or
There's
is.
just some anomalies out
It's
there.
just there are some things that are unexplained. And I'd say of all these, probably Bigfoot's the one that,
It's most likely to be.
I would say that there's some true aspect to it, but what that is, I don't know. But that's the one that they've probably found the most evidence of,
Well, and there are
corroborated evidence.
personal interaction stories. And see, my perspective and understanding is this is where we're talking about extra dimensional.
Right.
This is,
or interdimensional or extra dimensional.
Interdimensional.
I guess, but it just
Enter.
Extra.
They go
extra
in and
just
out.
means outside of. Extra means outside of, right?
Well,
Outside
I don't
of
know.
our
We're
dimension.
changing those terminologies pretty quickly because we're talking, a lot of the circles now are talking interdimensional and extra dimensional.
Well,
So,
it would be extra outside of the third and fourth, perhaps. Extra.
But if you go between dimensions, you're interdimensional.
yes.
So you're existing in several dimensions. That's interdimensional, and that's what. Okay, so my 2 cents on it is. So I'm a huge fan of Jamie Butler. People have heard me talk about her, and so she was a guest medium on the Channeling Eric YouTube thing or whatever. And so the person who would like sponsor her to do channelings would hit all kinds of different areas. And one of the areas they got into the tall grays and the short whites, all this kind of whatever they all called. And one of them was the series that they did on Bigfoot. And like the information just comes through, like it fits everything.
Yep.
It hits all the boxes and just, but anyway, so Jamie Butler like did these, I think there's 3 channeling sessions. And so she talked about them saying, that they're interdimensional beings, that they live between the 3rd and the, I think, 7th dimension, that there's certain resources that they like to come here and they like to come into this physical experience. And so they're able to switch between the two. And that's why you see them, then you don't see them. It's not that they're shy, and I'm just giving you like a quick rundown of what they said. That they're not shy, they're very private, and that they live in family groups. So a lot of times, they want, at some point they will bring their young over to experience this so they understand. So, if they have their young with them, then they're aggressive like anything else, but they're not intending to do harm.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's so like it's wild because she was able to ask so many different questions, and a lot of times you're sitting there going, "Ask the obvious question." She doesn't do it, and you're going, But I think 3 sessions worth is gonna give you all of the Bigfoot stuff you ever wanted to know. I just think that was one of the.
So we did a chant. Didn't we do one of Bigfoot?
Have you done one?
I don't remember if we channeled, but we hear a lot from Don and Diana, our friends that we've done an interview. And our understanding is that they did used to interact with humans. A lot of these creatures did interact with indigenous populations. But then there was a point at which the humans were afraid of them and their lives were at stake. So that's when they separated themselves from our dimension and from humanity at this time. But I think our understanding is that we all will be reuniting again as as we evolve into the higher dimensions too.
It's us who needs to evolve.
Right.
But that's interesting that they are into that too.
Into what?
Don and
Don and Diana.
Well, because they live in Colorado and
they've had
interactions with them. And that's like I was mentioning.
I would say more energetic than physical, right?
Yeah. They can sense them when they're out on the trail. They can sense them physically there and communicate with them. Right.
It's just fascinating. I just think anybody who comes over from Europe or anywhere else, you see the the 2-dimensional thing of the Bigfoot, like that's and
the big
everyone
steel, the big steel plate cut out in
When we went to Pikes Peak the first time, going up the main road to Pikes Peak, there's a sign, Bigfoot crossing or whatever. Yeah. It's really fun.
So it's like a whole thing. But the thing is, there's a basis in that, that's it's really kind of cool.
Right? So this is fascinating. All right. So Mothman is the next interesting one. And that's...
this is one I don't know
I think this is the
about.
aerial, type of aerial.
Yeah.
But this is more specific regional. So this began in West Virginia, in folklore of West Virginia.
Okay.
It's a humanoid creature reportedly seen in the Point Pleasant area from November 15th, 1966 to December 15th of 1967, where couples would see this man-sized bird or creature. They didn't know what it was. Of course, the press picked this up and reports helped spread this story across the United States. However, people seem to be fascinated with Mothman because it was later popularized by John Keel in his 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, claiming that there were paranormal events related to the sightings and some connection to the collapsing of a bridge called Silver Bridge. I'm not familiar with all of that. But then that book was adapted into a 2002 film with Richard Gere. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
You don't remember that?
I don't know.
The Mothman Prophecies?
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. You say you remember that, but you haven't seen Indiana Jones.
I didn't watch that movie. I just remember it coming out because I loved Richard Gere at that time. But I didn't watch that movie.
And see, to me, this makes me think of an individual, it's like one of those unexplainable kind of things where it's a human that maybe they got burned or maybe something,
I
and
get what you're saying. Yeah,
there's just something about,
True. Good point.
because just because it's something that we can't explain doesn't mean it didn't exist, and
Sure.
doesn't mean it didn't have a reasonable explanation for, how, no matter how far out it is. Because you think about, and I don't mean this is not any disrespect, but individuals who have been in a fire and who have been
disfigured.
burned.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot going on there, and it's on TikTok, this video of this person who, they're trying to raise money, and people will just throw money, if you put someone who is scarred or whatever. And this person had, it wasn't elephantitis, but they had something going on that you would have, if you had seen them briefly, well, even for an extended period of time, you would have classified them as something because they look part human, part not.
Right.
So that's where I think a lot of that, and it just gets built.
And unfortunately, a lot of those people, those deformed people or whatever back in the day, they would be taken in by the circus or the fair or whatever. And
sideshow.
And they would not come out except for the shadows of nighttime.
Yeah.
So it all, because all of these generally come out at night, except for Bigfoot.
Yeah. All right. So
they're
this
badass.
next one is really interesting to me because it's in South Carolina, which is where we live. This one's a little bit longer of a story, so bear with me. Okay. Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp, also called Lizard Man of Lee County. It's an entity said to inhabit the swampland of the region. We should go check this out.
Well, let's make a plan.
It was first mentioned in the late 1980s. On July 14th, 1988, the Lee County Sheriff's Office investigated a report of a car damaged overnight while parked at a home in the area of Browntown outside of Bishopville, South Carolina, on the edges of the Scape or Swamp.
You know what? We should have candlelight. You should have like
I know,
a
right?
light going up on your face.
Right.
Just imagine it, people.
The car reportedly had tooth marks and scratches with hair and muddy footprints left behind. Sheriff Truesdale noticed that this was the start of various claims that eventually coalesced into a story about a lizard man in the swamp. Prompted by the news of the vehicle damage, 17-year-old local Christopher Davis reported to the sheriff that his car was damaged by a creature that he described as green, wet-like, about 7 feet tall, and had 3 fingers, red eyes, skin like a lizard, snake-like scales, and he had seen this 2 weeks prior. According to Davis, he was driving home from work, working the night shift at a fast food restaurant when his car got a flat tire. After fixing it, he saw a creature walking towards him. He got in his car and began to drive, but the creature was soon on top of the car. He applied the brakes, causing the creature to roll off the car, giving Davis enough time to escape. Newspaper coverage and media resulted in increased attention for his claims. Local businesses began selling Lizard Man t-shirts, and the local Chamber of Commerce encouraged the media attention as being good for the community.
Don't think I won't be putting an underlying soundtrack underneath that.
Oh, are you going to put some music?
Absolutely.
Oh, that was so stirring. It's almost like
And people and she wonders
your adventure.
and she wonders why people ask her, when are you going to narrate your book?
Yeah.
When are you going to voice over your book? This is why.
Can I share one that's not going to be on your list? Can I share one that's also in South Carolina?
Yeah.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I just think this has so much meaning to it. So there's a Cherokee legend.
Yeah.
That there is this thing called the cat, the wampus cat, and human-sized cat that had like 6 legs, and but had some people features, and so it was first reported. So it's actually in the newspaper. It's first reported by the Greenville Sun. And but here's what I wonder, because it's a Southern saying, and I always wondered where it came from. You're walking cattywampus. If you had 6 legs, you'd be walking cattywampus, wouldn't you?
I've heard that, but I haven't heard that in a long time.
But I think it comes from that article.
Sure.
And it just so imagine that, like, that took on a life of its own for it to actually became a term like that. Because you can, I mean, I use catawampus all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, I had no idea.
That is funny.
That's why I had to mention that one, because that's so freaking cool. Yeah.
So when are we going to go to Bishopville and dig around the swamp.
That'd be interesting. So this is what I mean by there seem to be different categories under this umbrella. Some of these are just sensational stories that got, you know, I don't know.
Could that been a crocodile? I mean, a alligator?
Oh, well, but it could this or that or
No,
the
this
other
one. This one.
Well, this one. I mean, the thing is,
lizard guy.
there are people that have these chromosomal whatevers that end up having reptilian-like
Scaly, yeah.
skin.
Yeah,
You know, so if you were totally thrown out of your community and you're living in the woods and stuff and whatever, you know, like you can see how all of this stuff I like to believe in the fantastical, but I also think the fantastical is
Has
rooted.
an explanation sometimes.
Yeah, well, I think actually it all has an explanation, because I also believe, you know, I mean, we create thought forms. Sure. So you get enough people, you know, buying into a certain concept, you know.
Good point.
It's like, why do wrecks typically happen in one area? You know, the energy begins to build. Everyone says that's a dangerous corner, and you just foment that energy in that space. So why can't you do the same with
this
some of this?
brings up to me the devil or Satan is a mythological creature that people have created to be a stand-in for evil, essentially, a stand-in for the opposite of God.
Because he's a really good-looking angel called Lucifer.
Again, I don't watch that show.
Yeah, it's like
I did watch the John Travolta
super
one.
sexy.
Oh my gosh.
This train is struggling to stay on the tracks.
This last one is important
Oh yeah.
because I think it stands out amongst the rest of them. What number was
7.
that? 6, 7? Okay. You've seen those totem poles with the thunderbird at the top, right?
Yes.
In indigenous cultures. Very, very common.
Yeah, mainly
So they're calling the thunderbird a mythological creature falling under this idea of a cryptid.
Okay.
It's a mythological bird-like spirit, they say, in North American indigenous people's history and culture. It's considered a supernatural being of power and strength, and it's frequently depicted in the art and songs and oral histories of the indigenous people.
Yes.
The thunderbird is said to create thunder by flapping its wings and lightning by flashing its eyes. But across cultures, thunderbirds are generally depicted as birds of prey or hybrids of humans and birds. Thunderbirds are often viewed as protectors, sometimes intervening on people's behalf, but expecting veneration, prayers, and gifts. Now, science historians have given this some credence, I suppose. They've suggested that indigenous thunderbird stories are based on discoveries of pterosaur fossils, like those pterodactyl type of
Yeah,
birds,
Tyrannosaur.
by Native Americans. So perhaps, again, maybe some of those still exist or did exist when this first started, or they're seeing the spirit of those animals in their
or
meditations.
it could be based off of, you know, if you want to go this route, the alien beings that would come to Earth. Remember, they're all depicted as half man, half bird.
Right.
So, you know, that could have been carried over into that culture because a lot of the indigenous people moved north or moved from north to south. Like, I think there was visitation in that area too, but it
That's a good point.
So it could come off of that as well, but that's not to take away from the, like the sanctity of the
Right, no,
Thunderbird, because that's a huge thing. But I'm wondering if there's a basis with that.
Right. But because this is in so many indigenous cultures, not just one Indian tribe, for example,
Right.
I think it takes a little more credibility, and they go so far as to call it a spirit.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what those indigenous people would describe it as at this point.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I had a meditation at one point, and that symbol
Right, the Thunderbird
came
symbol,
into me at one point.
Yeah.
I forget the circumstance, but we have a book of symbols, signs and symbols. I meant to bring that over here, but it has meaning. So if it shows up for people in meditation,
Would you like me to get the book?
so that to me makes it a little bit different than some of these others.
Well, okay, and going along with that too, you know, and talking about thought forms, that kind of stuff, the more that people like feed into that, then the stronger that whole symbology means. So yes, if it becomes a spirit or it was a spirit, and you know they enhanced upon it.
And it also would, you know, still continuing on with that understanding of a thought form. I mean, it's that whole, you know, that's why you see kind of a ebb and flow of sightings or whatever. It kind of, it gets into somebody's thought form. They start talking about it. More and more people start talking about it. And then all of a sudden there's sightings. And then it just kind of dies off a little bit. And then it comes back around. So it all...
Because we humans cannot just stick to one thing.
No.
We get bored of it. It becomes normalized.
Novelty.
Move on to the next. Yeah, we're easily entertained and stuff. I just think it's
No, we are not...
fantastic.
I mean, as Allison said, we're not the foremost experts on cryptids or
No, we
any of
found
this,
it
but
interesting and
it's
thought
just
we would
interesting because it's a
research and bring
it's
it
a
to
good
you guys.
rabbit hole to go down and enjoy. I mean, we had a blast at our UFO fest and seeing all the vendors with all
you're
their
missing the experience, and you wanted to bring it back.
Right.
Now, I think we need to do one on mythological creatures, though.
Well, this is what this is. That's the
We're
definition
not
of it.
talking about unicorns and
Oh, those type of mythological
Yeah.
creatures.
yeah, because I mean, there's you guys have had interactions with them, right?
I've had a unicorn in a meditation come to me.
I've had interactions with like sensed, felt. I don't know how to explain it, but I always want to say brownies. I don't know what to call
Brownies?
them. Like sprites, gnomes. I don't know what to call them. They're little people, and they're like
sprites and gnomes.
That's another
and
story, but but there's been experience with that. So
What was
fairies.
that Fairy Stone
Fairy
State
Stones to
Park in
by us up in
Virginia?
Virginia.
We went there.
look,
and
we're going to do that for another one.
we found
Well, that's
fairies.
Yeah.
Fairy stones.
Yeah, so fairy stones are crystalline structure that's in the shape of a cross, and it takes like the form of like three different crosses. So it's very fascinating.
But within that, we
bring
talked
that
to
in.
the fairies about that. I asked about the significance of the one that I had found, and they said it's to remind you that you can connect with us at any time. So they do exist. And again, those would be what I would call extra or interdimensional, however you want to look at that. So
Because
yeah,
they peep in, peep out.
right.
Yes,
So
yes.
is all of that clear as mud?
It's
Yeah.
just as clear.
No, I think it's fun though for us to address
Yeah,
it and
just
not. We're very open-minded and we want to entertain all possibilities because then
And for those that
helps your
have those that have experience with, or maybe have had experience with some of the things we've talked about, or understand cryptids obviously more than we do, please inform us. Please leave your comments and school us if it were.
Yeah.
And now you have some movies to watch.
I would love to know. I have some movies to watch. I want to.
Mothman prophecies.
I want to watch that. Yeah. I'll probably
I don't
do
think
that.
that was especially
I'll probably
good.
do that while you're at. I'll probably do that while you're at work while I'm rendering podcasts. So.
Yep, there
Well,
you go.
Scott Richard Garrett can't be half bad. He's at least pleasant
well,
to
see,
look
that's
at.
the only
Yes.
thing I'm.
You're not a Richard Garrett fan?
No. No, sorry.
Officer and a Gentleman,
No.
one of my favorites. But at any rate, we appreciate you coming along on this fun little detour towards mythological creatures, and we'll have to bring you a part 2 of mythological creatures with the other guys.
As we skipped over, as we just hit the little wave crests of each one of the rabbit holes, we never
Yes.
really went down the rabbit hole. We just skipped across the top.
Well, no, but I think it's as much as anyone knows
Yes.
about that stuff. And like, again, I skimmed through YouTube because I wanted to get a little bit more basis off of it. And, they know like this much. Because it's a story. It's
Right.
a campfire story.
Yeah.
And that's as much as you hear. But you didn't talk about like Skinwalker Ranch.
I don't watch that either.
That's a
That's
whole.
not a
That's
st-
that,
that's-
but that's a whole rabbit hole to go down on its own.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's maybe a cryptid or something. Like, people are trying to figure out what that is.
Right.
True. And I wonder if that's the Chupacabra.
But whenever I
They
No,
think it's alien, don't they think it's
I
alien?
think they believe it's like.
whenever
yeah.
I hear Chupacabra or think about cryptids, I'm always taken back to Scooby Doo and the Mystery Machine. and
Yeah,
all that.
right.
Oh, really?
Right,
Oh, they were
right.
always trying to track down the Chupacabra.
But it was always a guy with
It's
a
always,
mask.
yeah, they were meddling in his
Pull-
nefarious
yes,
plan.
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us, and hit that thumbs up for us. Go ahead and subscribe, share away, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.